Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning. Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning to you. And many more. And many more. And many more. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome, welcome, welcome to Black Table Talk, Women's History Edition. I hope that you all are having a great and wonderful day. I hope you're having a great and wonderful morning. It is super, super important for people to do the things necessary in this hour to maintain your own peace, to maintain your own joy, and to not be deterred from your purpose and from moving forward. Now, we are simulcasting again on both Facebook and on YouTube. And I do have the YouTube Pastor Ben also set up because I don't see a camera today on Facebook. So when we make that transition to discussion, you can meet me on YouTube, or you can just go ahead and hop to the YouTube so that we can have a seamless uh, conversation. All right. So without further ado, let's talk about connected women, inspiring women who have shaped the world and each other. And we are starting today with Harriet Tubman. All right. Yesterday was International Women's Day, and I want to say happy International Women's Day to those of you who did not see it on my page. I put up a couple of posts about it. But also, it is Black Women's History Month. Has been extended from April back to March. We know that Black History Month has been extended for the rest of the year because people have been acting a fool since the year started. And so Black people, the melanin delegation has got together and decided that they're extending the learning for everyone all the way through the end of the year. And so because it is Women's History Month and Black Women's History Month, obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about Harriet Tubman. Harriet, by the way, passed away on March 10th. So the anniversary of her passing is coming up this week. Known as Moses and General Tubman for her work leading the enslaved to freedom, Harriet Tubman has become emblematic of the struggle for Black emancipation. Harriet was born Araminta Ross. Harriet was her mother's name, which she took when she freed herself, in case you didn't know that. And that was her, Araminta Ross was her name that she was born into bondage in on an estate in Maryland. Suffering years of abuse never deterred her from standing up for those even less fortunate. She once took a severe blow to the head from an angered overseer with a lead weight intended for another. And good morning to those of you who are here. Amazingly, she survived, but she was dogged by pain and narcolepsy or seizures for the rest of her life. Even in her travels Um, she would go into these times where she would pass out. And she said in that passing out, sometimes she would get directions or she would get spiritual guidance during that time as to where to go. This injury gave her what some call a hyperreal vision, which she saw as messages from God. Ill and worried about being sold on as a sickly inconvenience, Harriet escaped the plantation, using the established network of safe houses and secret routes known as the Underground Railroad. Now, I believe in New York recently, they just found another secret underground railroad passage, and they said it was the first that they had found in, I think, like some decades. But it was a Chester drawer, and you could pull the Chester drawer out, and a person could hide in this carved out space inside of the drawer. It was really amazing. You can probably look it up online. It was a news report. She set up base in Philadelphia, returning to rescue her family, then time and time again to escort more enslaved persons to freedom. They traveled by night, staying in barns, under church floors, or in caves, hiding from bounty hunters and marshals. Harriet's secret signal was to sing Go Down Moses at different speeds to indicate if it was safe to proceed. Despite her lack of formal education, which is why I have a real problem with people who do get hung up on formal education, Harriet was a powerful public speaker and combined practical help with campaigning to formidable effect. Drawing on her own experiences, she was brave and committed and rose from the most humble of beginnings to become an internationally famous activist. Harriet saw the Civil War as a chance to end the tyranny of enslavement and volunteered as a cook and nurse, and then as an armed scout and spy. She guided a raid that liberated more than 700 enslaved persons at one time. After the war, Harriet married for the second time and adopted a baby girl named Gertie. Retiring to Auburn, New York, Harriet nursed her parents, whom she had rescued from enslavement, and continued to be active in the women's suffrage movement. She passed away March 10th, 1913, after telling her family and friends, I go to prepare a place for you. Standing alongside Harriet in the fight for abolition and also born into enslavement was Sojourner Truth. The pair had very different approaches to the way they conducted their battles. Harriet was practical, physical, and aggressive, helping enslaved people escape and putting herself directly in the line of danger, while Sojourner spoke and lectured. Despite fighting for the same cause, the two women met only once in Boston, Massachusetts in 1864. So this page, as we turn, and that's why I said I really like this particular book, Connected Women, because as we turn the page, we're going to go right into the connection of Sojourner Truth here. All right. Sojourner Truth could be described as the mother of intersectional feminism. She showed through her speeches and her deeds that she believed that in order for women to be truly emancipated, everyone, regardless of color, needed to be heard. She was also notoriously funny, often using satire and sarcasm in her talks to maximize their power. Isabella Baumfree, as she was first known, grew up in enslavement in upstate New York, being bought and sold 3 times before escaping. She took one daughter with her, but had to leave her other children behind. When she found out that her 5-year-old son, Peter, had been illegally sold, she sued her old master and astonishingly, for the time, won. Isabella became a Christian and moved to New York City, where she spoke at religious revivals. learning quickly how to be an effective and moving orator. She also changed her name to Sojourner Truth. During her preaching travels, she met abolitionists William Lloyd Garrison and Frederick Douglass, who encouraged her to give anti slavery speeches. She dedicated an autobiography and became interested in the burgeoning women's rights movement. Sojourner gave her seminal speech, Ain't I a Woman, in 1851. In it, she delivered a strong message that woman often meant white woman, and that the emancipation of Black women was as important as the emancipation of everyone. In 1865, Sojourner anticipated Rosa Parks by 90 years and rode in a whites only streetcar to force the desegregation of public transport in Washington. She received a dislocated arm for her troubles, but succeeded in her aims. Did anybody know about this tie of Sojourner Truth to Rosa Parks? She also tried unsuccessfully to persuade Congress to give ex enslaved persons land grants to secure private property. Sojourner continued to speak passionately on subjects including capital punishment until old age made it impossible. During her travels, she met the author of Uncle Tom's Cabin, Harriet Beecher Stowe, at Harriet's house, where the writer was hosting a meeting of clergymen and abolitionists. In Harriet's account of the meeting, which has been criticized for stereotyping Sojourner wrongly as a simple Southerner, when she was, in fact, a sharp wit from New York State. She portrayed Sojourner as a plain talking, direct woman with a self possessed air. She said she had never been conversant with anyone who had been more of or of that silent and subtle power which we all call personal presence than this particular woman. So this book goes on to connect that point of Sojourner Truth with Harriet Beecher Stowe. But we're going to stop there. I have some more women I want to share with you from another book. Most of you who were with us in February know about this particular book. This is Illustrated Black History, honoring the iconic and the unseen. And today we are honoring from this book, Dorothy Height. I had the honor of visiting her office in DC. Um, they have her office in DC. I can't remember what building it was located in, but it's pretty much like a memorial or a almost like a shrine to her. And they still have her office set up the way it was when she was there, which was pretty interesting. Dorothy Height lived from 1912 to 2010. So I think that was maybe 2011, 2012. When I went to go see her office, it was still pretty fresh, her passing. This quote says, I'm still working today to make the promise of the 14th Amendment of equal justice under law a reality. Dorothy Height was accepted to Barnard College and scheduled to begin classes in 1929. But there was an issue she learned that summer. The Richmond, Virginia native who'd grown up in Rankin, Pennsylvania, was told that the college had met its quota for Negro students that term, and she would not be able to enroll. While in high school, Height had volunteered in voting rights and anti lynching campaigns. Perhaps it was in part that experience that helped her find the resolve to head downtown to New York University, where she was admitted into the education program. She received her bachelor's degree in 1933 and in 1935 a master's degree in psychology. She trained as a social worker and was employed at the New York City Welfare Department. By the late 1930s, Height had become assistant director of the Harlem YWCA and was interviewed by the New York Times for protesting the way Black women were being treated as domestic day laborers in Brooklyn and in the Bronx. In 1938, the paper reported that Black women waited at, quote, slave markets to be hired by white housewives who would drive around in search of help for hire at 15 cents an hour or $1 a day. Now let's take a pause there. That was in 1938. Black women who were day laborers were being hired by white women who still were not working their own households, by the way, at 15 cents an hour or $1 for a whole day's work. And we're wondering why we have the labor issue and the economy issue that we have. And we wonder why 825,000 Black women have been let go from their jobs, because this is what they want to return to. Let's be clear. They want to return to Black women as domestic workers and cheap labor. Okay? So let's be cognizant of where we are and where they're trying to take us back to. Now let us continue. During her time at the Y, Height accompanied First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt to a meeting of the National Council of Negro Women. While attending, she met Mary McLeod Bethune. In her memoir, Open Wide the Freedom Gates, Height wrote about her fateful meeting with Bethune. On that fall day, the redoubtable Mary McLeod Bethune put her hand on me. She drew me into her dazzling orbit of people in power and people in poverty. Sounds like the title of a book. The freedom gates are half ajar, she said. We must pry them fully open. I've been committed to the calling ever since. Height became a driving force in the Y's desegregation efforts and founded its Center for Racial Justice in 1965. Height was an integral figure in the broader national civil rights movement. She can be spotted in photos near Martin Luther King Jr. at the March on Washington as he delivered the 1963 I Have a Dream speech. She herself was an accomplished speaker, but no women were asked to speak that historic day. Height served as president of the National Council of Negro Women for 40 years, from 1957 to 1997. In 1971, she helped found the National Women's Political Caucus with Shirley Chisholm, among other women's movement leaders. An advisor to several presidents on matters of civil rights, she attended the inauguration of President Barack Obama in 2009 and was seated on the dais during the ceremony. She received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1994 and the Congressional Gold Medal in 2004. That year, Barnard College made Height an honorary graduate. And this is the artist's rendering or the artist's interpretation of Dorothy Height. She didn't let one door that closed in front of her stop her from moving forward to a new door. And now I'm going to read to you one of the more controversial women, or she was at the time. I do remember as a young person in 1992, I was in high school. I remember this congressional hearing. I remember how they treated Anita Hill. And I just kept wondering to myself as a teenager, why won't they believe this woman? Like, I didn't think that she was saying something that was unbelievable. And this was the hearing of the person who is now giving Black people some of the worst rulings in the Supreme Court, or agreeing with some of the worst rulings out of the Supreme Court, because Anita Hill was not believed. Anita Hill was born in 1956, and she is still presently alive. She said, "There's some place in your conscience that says, if I don't act, then I will have been a part of something that I don't want to live with." In 1991, Anita Hill was a professor of contract law at the University of Oklahoma College of Law with no expectation of becoming a public figure. After practicing law in Washington, D.C. and working for the federal government, she was teaching at the Norman campus after a short period at Oral Roberts University in Tulsa. But when President George H.W. Bush nominated Clarence Thomas to the Supreme Court that year as a replacement for the retiring Thurgood Marshall, Hill realized that her status as a private citizen would soon change. Anita Hill was born in Oklahoma, the youngest of 13 children. After graduating from high school, she enrolled at Oklahoma State University and received a bachelor's degree in psychology with honors in 1977. She then attended Yale Law School, obtaining her JD degree with honors in 1980. Early in her legal career, from 81 to 1983, Hill worked with Clarence Thomas as a legal advisor in the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights, which we probably don't have anymore, by the way, and at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, something that is now being used in a reverse discrimination way. During those 2 years as his colleague, Hill later claimed at Thomas's confirmation hearings in 1991 that Thomas had subjected her to ongoing unwanted advances ranging from repeated depictions of pornography to constantly asking her to go out with him. She had left her position to pursue work in academia, she explained, but now felt the responsibility to speak out against Thomas's nomination despite the historic nature of his potential appointment as the second Black Supreme Court justice. In 1991, the term sexual harassment was not commonly used. Many people didn't know that it was their right to document offenses and file complaints against those responsible for inappropriate behavior in the workplace. But they would soon know. The October hearings became a media spectacle. They aired in real time, and the nation was riveted. Hill endured questioning from an all-white, all-male Senate Judiciary Committee led by then Senator Joe Biden. The striking images from those hearings have become iconic. Few can forget Hill's poised countenance in the face of rigorous interrogation that asked her to recount details of instances of abuse by Thomas. Keen observers understood the burden she faced as a Black woman reporting the behavior of a prominent Black man nearing a career victory to an all-white, all-male Judiciary Committee. Criticism came from all sides, and it was loud and endless. It soon became clear that the hearing was more like a trial for her, not Thomas, whose future seemed threatened. Thomas received his nomination and was voted onto the Supreme Court, where he still sits today, making some of the most terrible decisions for Black Americans, which could have been stopped had y'all believed a Black woman. But Hill didn't retreat. She lent her voice to a widening chorus of Americans who knew the seemingly boundless range of workplace harassment, no matter the race of the perpetrator. Many found her treatment by the Senate to have been extraordinary in its tonal dissonance and sexism. As a result, more women entered the political arena. In 1992, their representation in Congress doubled to 6 seats in the Senate and 47 seats in the House. Hill became a prominent speaker not only on the wide-scale impact of sexual harassment, but increasingly on matters of equality, specifically economic. She took a professorship at Brandeis University in 1998, following calls for her resignation from OU, where she'd had a tenured position. There was no benefit in her coming forward, only the truth. Lending her modulated, firm voice to a public discourse that shocked many at the time certainly cost her, but her leadership, consistency, and clarity elevated issues of gender violence and created new language and ways for women to speak and expect to be heard. In fact, Hill's bravery came to have cascading effects that would then shape legislation and workplace policy. After the Thomas confirmation, President Bush dropped his opposition to a bill that gave harassment victims the right to seek federal damage awards, back pay, and reinstatement. This bill became law. A year later, harassment complaints filed with the EEOC jumped 50% as women gathered the courage to step forward. So, though she did not get justice for herself, she opened the way for other women to get justice. Companies, large and small, started training programs to deter. You go get hired. One receive the training about sexual harassment, how not to commit it. Testimony didn't stop there. Public sentiment turned in Hill's favor. Women and men were spotted all over the country wearing "I Believe Anita Hill" buttons on their lapels. Furthermore, as noted above, many observers attribute the large number of women elected to Congress in 1992 to Anita Hill, Clarence Thomas's controversy. Eleanor Holmes Norton, a DC congressional delegate, said, "Women clearly went to the polls with the notion in mind that we had to have more women in Congress. Like all national phenomena, folks forget. They go about their lives. They remember the bravery and actions of others in muted tones. But Anita Hill has lived a life that thus far cannot be forgotten." In 2019, the presidential campaign team for Joe Biden told reporters that Biden had called Anita Hill to state his regret for what she endured in his role as the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, presiding over the Thomas confirmation hearings. She said, "Thank you," but her "no thank you" was felt as well. While she later said she would vote for Biden, she remarked with pointed generosity that she would work with him on gender issues. Anita Hill, with her bravery, has empowered a generation of women. She didn't leap from tall buildings or save hostages from a bank heist. Instead, she gave women a roadmap to claiming their self-worth. Her opening statement at the Thomas hearings is instructive. She said, "It would have been more comfortable to remain silent. It took no initiative to inform anyone. I took no initiative to inform anyone. But when I was asked by a representative of this committee to report my experience, I felt that I had to tell the truth. I could not keep silent." Her leadership continues to be an example to follow. And this is the artist's renderings of Anita Hill. All right. I'm reading from one more book today before we go to discussion. And this is a relatively new book, not a new author, but a new book. And I think this is a book that if you are serious about women's studies and serious about women's rights, both here in the United States and the world over, this is a book that you want to get. I'm going to read you an excerpt today. It is called Without Fear by Keisha N. Blaine. And I'll hold that up for those of you who might want to screenshot it. Without Fear, Black Women and the Making of Human Rights. Without Fear tells the story of Black women who, like Deborah in the Bible, have engaged in social justice agitation, refusing to simply suffer by engaging in the redemptive work of challenging injustice while in the midst of it. Each of us can and must learn from these women if we are to reconstruct America and build a just world. And I am going to hop into her chapter called Universal, Natural, and Equal Rights. And I'm just going to read you an excerpt, starting with After the Civil War. After the Civil War, the era of Reconstruction, which lasted from 1865 to 1877, marked one of the most promising yet turbulent eras of American history. With access to the vote, African American men elected the nation's first Black senators, federal representatives, lieutenant governors, and state representatives. The passage of the Reconstruction Amendments 13, 14, and 15 was vital in this regard. The 13th Amendment, ratified in 1865, abolished legal slavery except for imprisonment or except for in the case of committing a crime. The 14th Amendment, ratified in 1868, conferred national citizenship on all individuals born in the United States, regardless of their race, and it overturned the 1857 Dred Scott decision, in which Chief Justice Roger Taney insisted that African Americans, Black Americans, had no rights which the white man was bound to respect. The 15th Amendment, ratified in 1870, granted Black men the right to vote. These developments significantly expanded Black political rights for a time, but the fight for rights and freedom was not over. Black women were on the front lines of the struggle for voting rights and worked within the suffrage movement while facing prejudice from their white allies. This is not new to political history. So when I see people acting like Black women facing prejudice from their so-called allies, it should be a surprise. It is not a surprise. It's not. So let's see what happened, okay? In 1866, while attending the 11th National Women's Rights Convention in New York City, activist and author Frances Ellen Watkins Harper boldly challenged white women who advocated for women's rights but excluded those of Black women. Her remarks at the convention captured the essence of her political vision. I do not believe that giving the woman the ballot is immediately going to cure all the ills of life. You white women speak here of rights. I speak of wrongs. By this time, Harper had been working many years in the struggle for rights. Born in Baltimore in 1825, Harper became one of the first Black American writers to be published when she released her book of poems, Forest Leaves, sometime around 1845. Similar to Stewart and Sessions, Harper emphasized equal rights and humanity in her essays and speeches. Writing in the Anglo-African magazine in 1859, she challenged her male colleagues who insisted that wealth was the key to ending racial prejudice in the United States. Instead, Harper made a case for equal rights as the only means by which Black people could improve their social standing. Our great need is not gold or silver, but true men and true women, she said. We need men and women whose hearts are the homes of a high and lofty enthusiasm and a devotion to the cause of emancipation, she explained. The important lesson we should learn and be able to teach, she continued, is how to make every gift, whether gold or talent, subserve the cause of crushed humanity and carry out the greatest idea of the present age, the glorious idea of human brotherhood. By referencing humanity and human brotherhood, which she would do, which Martin Luther King would take on that language over almost a century later, right? She emphasized the importance of unalienable rights that transcended the nation state. Years later, in confronting white women at the 1866 National Women's Rights Convention, she reiterated the need for full citizenship for African Americans. She said, because a lot of us attribute this to MLK, we are all bound up together in one great bundle of humanity, and society cannot trample on the weakest and feeblest of its members without receiving the curse in its own soul. I might have to put that on a nice little quote meme today and plug it in to my page. One more time. Society cannot trample on the weakest and feeblest of its members without receiving the curse in its own soul. Have we learned that lesson yet, class? Class, do y'all think we've learned that yet? I don't think we have. The emphasis on the need for rights on the basis of shared humanity offered a glimpse into how Harper's vision was shaped by both national and global concerns. By excluding Black women from the vision of suffrage, Harper pointed out that white women were not only failing to acknowledge Black women's rights as citizens of the United States, but they were failing to acknowledge our rights as citizens of the world. Are we still making the same mistake in America? Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Are we still ignoring Black women's voices when we try to tell y'all what you're doing is not going to work? Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Are we still trying to paternalize Black people and say, sit down, Black people, We'll take your votes, but not your voices. And we know what's best for you. Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. We are making the same exact mistakes that generations before us made. The question is for us today, are we going to change? Are we going to shift? Are we going to do something different? Or are we going to keep on ignoring certain voices and excluding them from the tapestry of human history and human rights? Something to think about. All right. I want to thank those of you who have stayed, who have watched, who will share this video for our Women's History Month segments. Thank you for your time and for your attention. This has been a special edition of Black Table Talk, and I've been your host today, Shantae Charles. We are going to chop it up on my YouTube page, so if you want to join us there shortly, we're going to have the talk back part of this conversation. We like to read aloud. That's what we do here. We see so many benefits to reading aloud. Number one, increasing literacy. Number two, I'm your live audiobook for today. And number three, we get an opportunity to share our viewpoint, share our opinions, and hopefully you learn something today that you did not know before. Hope you will join us on our YouTube page. Our YouTube page is at Life Nation KC, where this conversation continues. If not, I'll see you next week, Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be well, and most importantly, be light. All right, I am going to send you the conversation link in just a moment. All righty. And good morning, Sadie. Good morning, Caden17Z. Thank you for joining us live. So we're going to give Pastor Ben a moment to hop on in because Facebook is over there playing games. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning. How are you?
Good. It is starting to finally thaw out here in the great state of Maryland. It's going to be, I think, 70 today. Super excited.
Yeah, we've been
We've been
having
having
sunshine here.
sunshine here. I know. I know. That's why it's called the Sunshine State.
Yeah, yep.
Yep.
Sometimes
Sometimes
we
we
have
have
liquid
liquid
sunshine.
sunshine. Mm.
Y'all
Y'all
call
call
it
it
rain.
rain. Mm-hmm. So we've touched on
Uh,
quite a few women today,
yes,
yes, but it's been
and
interesting because they all tie together historically to the moment that we are in.
yes,
Yes,
and it
and it
seems that the
seems that
theme
the theme
is
is
black women
black
handle
women handle
business.
business. Yeah.
Which
Which
reminds me,
reminds me, there
there was a
was a
video
video
that I was
that
watching
I was
some
watching
years
some
ago.
years ago.
Matter of fact, it
Matter of fact,
may
it
have been
may have been
last year.
last year.
Uh,
Uh,
there was this
there
white
was this
person that
white person
said,
that said,
"If you want a
"If you
problem
want a problem
solved,
solved,
give it to a
give it
black
to a
woman."
black woman." Hmm.
Because black
Because
women are
black women are
historically
historically
problem
problem
solvers.
solvers. Mm-hmm.
They see
They see
something,
something,
they deal
they
with it,
deal with it,
and we all
and we
win.
all win. And someone explained it to me this way. They said we are often working to solve a problem because we are hit with that problem from so many different angles.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, we are hit from the angle of us being black, right? We're hit from the
Mm-hmm.
angle of us being a woman, and that becomes that term that was coined, intersectionality, meaning the more marginalized or more intersections you have with conditions that are marginalized in society, the more you can see what the problem is because you're experiencing it from different angles. So a person who is black, female, um, overweight, poor, um, and disabled, right? That's five areas that they would be feeling or experiencing those things coming at them from, and that intersection makes them to be makes them able to see what the problem is because they're experiencing it from more than one angle.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was a good way to put it, that the
Yeah.
more intersections of marginalization that you have, it gives you a perception and a range of perception of what's wrong, and that's why it's easier for you to sort of see what a solution might be because you're not just hitting it from one
Mm-hmm. I, I want to speak on something that you spoke on earlier about them trying to force black women back in the homes of white folks taking care of their children.
angle.
That's not a smart thing, especially if you want to bury African American history. You don't think that black woman that know the truth about history gonna teach your children the truth about history? You can say, "I don't want you to do it." That's a black woman. She gonna speak the truth. Haven't y'all learned anything yet? You don't really want that. You're trying to keep your children from learning the truth about y'all's evil, but you're gonna put people in your homes and pay them to teach your children the truth, and you don't even know it.
They keep thinking that this is 1865. I think that's what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
I think that's
And,
I think that's the general consensus.
and black women were smart then. It's just that they knew they had to do certain things to survive, and so their children and pass things on to their children. Let their children take the baton and take it a little bit further. See, they
Absolutely.
they were
My
never.
my mother spent part of her work life doing, domestic work in hotels on Miami Beach, and
Mm-hmm.
she would come home and she would tell us some of the things that were happening, some of the attempts that were made. Even can you hear me? Can you hear me? Uh-oh. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I'm not sure what has happened. Can you hear me? I don't think he can hear me. Let's see. So, can you hear me, Pastor Ben? He can't hear me. My screen just froze. All right, I'm gonna have to come back. I will come back.